crazy.
Look, I don't think that a lot of things that are thrown out around in social media and in whatever the conversations are Caitlin's life. I think people are talking about Caitlin and projecting whatever they feel at the time. I think the most important thing for me when Jake was asking the question is just that she's so mature beyond her years. I mean, the way that she handles celebrity, the way that she handles being in the spotlight and competing at a high level, and really has over the last however many years.
Okay, so you just heard Stephanie White compare Caitlin Clark to Taylor Swift 2.0, right? She's talking about fans lined up at hotels, roped off areas, unprecedented stardom in women's basketball. She's hyping up the fan base, acknowledging what Caitlin brings to the table. But hold up, Nost, because what she says next is going to blow your mind. This woman literally goes from praising the phenomenon to attacking the very people who created it. And the wildest part, she doesn't even realize she's contradicting herself. You're about to witness one of the most tone-deaf moments in WNBA coaching history, and I need you to catch every single word because this reveals something way bigger than just one coach's opinion.
Word.
And because of that, her name gets thrown into a lot of conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with her or her interests. Her name grabs headlines, her name grabs attention. Her name is clickbait. Her name is utilized in a way that very few people and athletes are. It's in the same sphere as LeBron, as Serena Williams, as Tiger Woods, as Taylor Swift. And so, I wish that Caitlin was able to just live her life.
Did you catch that shift? Her name gets thrown into conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with her. Listen to how she words that Maida Caitlin's name is being weaponized, like the fans are somehow hijacking her identity. But here's what Stephanie conveniently forgets to mention. Those conversations exist because of what Caitlin accomplished. Nobody's dragging her name into random drama. People are analyzing whether the Indiana Fever is maximizing the greatest talent women's basketball has ever seen. That's not toxicity. That's accountability. And what comes next? Oh, this is where Stephanie reveals her true feelings about the fan base that literally saved her franchise from irrelevance.
Social media side of things, for you personally, how much of that are you exposed to? Or are you able to kind of unplug and stay away from a lot of that? Because obviously Chloe sees a ton of it. I see a lot of it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you're able to unplug if you are.
No, I'm old enough that I don't need to be on there. I think it's a little different. This is not a branding thing for me. I'm able to unplug, shut it off, delete the apps, whatever it may be. In my younger days, I probably would have called myself a little bit of a pot stirrer.
So you would have crashed out a few years ago. Okay, cool.
So I would go out there and I would be actively involved in that, 10 years ago when I was with the Fever the first time. But
I'm old enough that I don't need to be on there. You hear that dismissive tone? She's positioning herself above social media, like engaging with fans is beneath her. And check out this line. This is not a branding thing for me. But Stephanie, you chose to coach the most scrutinized team in women's basketball. You knew exactly what you were signing up for. She admits she would have been a plotter 10 years ago, meaning she would have crashed out, gotten into arguments, defended herself online. So what changed? She got older and now she's too good for feedback? The psychology here is fascinating. She's not avoiding social media because she's mature. She's avoiding it because she can't handle the heat. And what she says next proves it.
It's our team and my family and life. I don't need to doom scroll, and I don't need to take up that much time. I actually, for the first time since April, have started reading again. So I'd rather spend 30-40 minutes an hour reading a book.
Well, you should spend 30-40 minutes watching some Caitlin Clark highlights so you can know how to build a game plan around her. How about that? I do support you reading books though.
Than being on social media. And it's a great tool for a lot of different reasons. I just think it's become such a negative space. It's become such a place where we've forgotten. Again, I think I said this on Jake's interview too. It's like we've forgotten
There it is. It's such a negative space. It's become such a place where we've forgotten what, Stephanie? Forgotten to blindly praise coaches who play their superstar at small forward. Forgotten to ignore questionable rotations and roster decisions. She's pulling the classic move, deflecting legitimate criticism by painting the entire space as toxic. But let's break down what's really happening here. She wasn't calling social media a cesspool when she was at Connecticut and nobody was watching. She wasn't complaining about negativity when she was coaching in obscurity. The only reason she's dealing with scrutiny now is because she's coaching Caitlin Clark, and instead of embracing that responsibility, she's blaming the fans for caring too much. The audacity is breathtaking.
Does that stuff find its way to you, be it by email, people handwriting letters? I know that can be a thing sometimes, or it's been pretty calm for you on that.
You mean handwriting letters can be a thing sometimes?
Yeah.
You young people, sometimes it does. I think people that are going out of their way to spread negativity or to fuel some hateful message, they've got other issues.
Now here's where this gets deeper than just one coach's feelings. Stephanie White is exhibiting a pattern we've seen before in women's basketball, and if you've been paying attention this season, you know exactly where I'm going with this. Remember when Sky Agnew, the WNBA commissioner, basically blamed Caitlin Clark fans for creating a hostile environment? She said the league was dealing with racism, misogyny, and homophobia from new fans, painting everyone with the broadest brush possible, instead of acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, people were calling out legitimate issues in how the league treated its biggest star. Stephanie is doing the exact same thing. She's taking the Scott Agnew playbook and running with it. Oh, the fans are too negative. Oh, social media is toxic. Oh, I need to protect my energy. But you know what's actually toxic? Having the greatest rookie season in WNBA history happen on your watch and still finding ways to complain about the attention it brings.
Out there.
That's true. There are some miserable people out there. KTV not one of them.
I often say, and I say this to my own children, like, it's not hard to not be a jerk. And people go out of their way to be jerks. Well,
we not being jerks. We just calling out what was a level of negligence with the Indiana Fever and not putting the proper pieces around Caitlin Clark. And it's as simple as.
Let's talk about what Stephanie conveniently leaves out of this whole narrative. She mentions reading books instead of doom scrolling. And honestly, good for her. Reading is great, but you know what else would be great? Watching Caitlin Clark highlight tapes, studying how other elite point guards are utilized, analyzing why playing your generational talent at small forward might not be the optimal strategy. Because here's the thing about coaching at this level. You don't get to just opt out of feedback because it makes you uncomfortable. The fans aren't sending hate mail because they're miserable people with nothing better to do. They're invested because they watched Caitlin Clark drag Iowa to back-to-back national championship games. They watched her break Pete Maravich's scoring record. They watched her sell out arenas across the country. And then they watched the Indiana Fever fail to put adequate pieces around her. Sometimes people handwrite letters to spread negativity and hateful messages. Okay, let's pause right here, because this is where Stephanie reveals something crucial about her mindset. She's lumping AOL criticism into the category of hate. Someone writes a letter expressing concern about roster construction? Hate. Someone questions coaching decisions on Twitter? Negativity. Someone points out that Caitlin's usage rate could be optimized? Toxic behavior. This is classic deflection psychology. By categorizing every form of feedback as hateful, she creates a shield where she never has to actually engage with legitimate points. And notice how she pivots to "I'll pray for them, I'll send good vibes," positioning herself as the enlightened one dealing with trolls, when in reality she's dismissing a fan base that has very valid concerns. But here's what makes this entire situation absolutely wild. Stephanie White chose this job. She left Connecticut, where she had a solid situation with minimal pressure, to come coach the Indiana Fever specifically because of Caitlin Clark. Let's not pretend otherwise. The Fever job wasn't attractive because of the market size or the roster depth or the organizational structure. It was attractive because coaching Caitlin Clark means coaching the face of women's basketball for the next decade. That comes with perks, buzzability, job security, a chance to build a championship contender, but it also comes with scrutiny. You don't get to cherry pick the benefits while complaining about the responsibility. That's like becoming a movie director for a Marvel film and then complaining that fans have opinions about how you portrayed their favorite character. And let's address the elephant in the room that Stephanie keeps dancing around. She talks about maintaining perspective and surrounding herself with people who can be honest with her. But is she actually listening to honest feedback? Because from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like it. The Indiana Fever made questionable roster moves. They didn't adequately address their defensive weaknesses. They experimented with lineups that didn't maximize Caitlyn's strengths. And when fans pointed this out, not with blind hate, but with actual basketball analysis, they got labeled as toxic. This is a classic case of someone confusing criticism with cruelty. Criticism says, here's what could be better. Cruelty says, you're worthless. Fans were offering the former, Stephanie is hearing the latter. There are a lot of miserable people out there. It's not hard to not be a jerk. And there it is, the final nail in the coffin. She's straight up calling Caitlin Clark fans miserable jerks. Not some fans, not a small minority. She's making a blanket statement about the entire community. This is the same community that drove record attendance numbers, the same community that got WNBA games on primetime television, the same community that made the Indiana Fever relevant again after years of mediocrity. And Stephanie's response is to call them miserable. The lack of self-awareness is staggering, because you know who actually sounds miserable in this interview? The coach who can't handle feedback, who deletes apps to avoid accountability, who frames passionate fans as enemies instead of allies. Now let me connect some dots that Stephanie probably doesn't want connected. This interview reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what's actually happening in women's basketball right now. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring new fans to the WNBA, she brought a new standard of expectation. For years, the league operated in relative obscurity. Coaches could make questionable decisions without much pushback. Front offices could construct mediocre rosters without accountability. Players could underperform without widespread criticism. That era is over. Caitlyn's stardom has dragged women's basketball into the mainstream spotlight, and with that spotlight comes everything that exists in men's sports. Analysis, debate, criticism, and yes, sometimes negativity. But that's not a bug, that's a feature. That's what it means to be taken seriously as a professional league. Here's what Stephanie and other WNBA figures need to understand. The fans aren't the problem. The resistance to accountability is the problem. When NBA coaches make bad decisions, they get roasted by fans and media alike. When NFL teams mismanage generational talent, there are consequences. When MLB organizations fail to build around their stars, people lose their jobs. This is standard operating procedure in professional sports. But somehow in the WNBA, there's this expectation that everyone should just be grateful the league exists and never question anything. That's not how you build a sustainable, respected professional league. You build it by embracing the scrutiny, by welcoming the debate, by understanding that passionate fans who care enough to criticize are actually your biggest asset. And let's talk about the specific phrase Stephanie used. Cesspool for negativity. You know what's actually a cesspool? A space where legitimate concerns get dismissed, where accountability doesn't exist, where coaches can underperform without consequences. Social media might be imperfect, but it's also democratized sports analysis. Fans who've watched thousands of hours of basketball can now share their perspectives alongside traditional media that threatens people who are used to operating without oversight. Stephanie's discomfort with social media isn't about toxicity, it's about losing control of the narrative. She can't just do her job in a vacuum anymore. Every decision gets analyzed, debated, questioned, and instead of rising to that challenge, she's retreating and blaming the platform. But here's where this story takes an even more interesting turn. By attacking the fan base, Stephanie is actually creating the exact problem she claims to be avoiding. Think about the psychology here. Fans who are offering constructive criticism now feel dismissed and invalidated. Fans who were passionate supporters now feel attacked. She's taking a community that was invested in the team's success and alienating them by painting them as villains. This is leadership malpractice. A smart coach would acknowledge the passion, address legitimate concerns, and channel that energy into something productive. Instead, Stephanie is building walls, creating an us versus them mentality where the coaching staff and organization are under siege from toxic fans. That's not reality, but it might become reality if she keeps pushing this narrative. What really gets me about this whole situation is the missed opportunity. Stephanie White had a chance in this interview to take the high road. She could have said, look, I understand fans are passionate and invested. We hear the feedback. We're constantly evaluating how to maximize Caitlyn's talents while building a championship team. It's a process, and we appreciate the support even when people disagree with our decisions. That response acknowledges the fans, validates their passion, and maintains professional boundaries. Instead, she chose to go on the attack. She chose to frame engagement as toxicity. She chose to position herself as a victim of the very fan base that made her job relevant. And that choice reveals something important about how she views her role and her relationship with the community. So what happens next? Because this isn't just about one interview or one coach's perspective. This is about the future of women's basketball and how the league handles its explosive growth. If WNBA coaches, executives, and players continue to push back against passionate fan bases by labeling them toxic, they're gonna kill the golden goose. Caitlin Clark brought mainstream attention to the league, but that attention only stays if people feel like their investment matters. When fans spend money on tickets, jerseys, and league pass subscriptions, they're buying into a relationship with the sport. And relationships require mutual respect. Stephanie White just told millions of fans that their passion is unwelcome, their criticism is hate, and their engagement is toxic. How do you think that plays out long term? Does the fan base just accept that and keep showing up? Or do they start to disengage when they realize the league doesn't actually want them unless they're offering blind praise? The answer to that question will define the next chapter of the WNBA. Drop your thoughts below. Is Stephanie out of line here, or do fans need to check themselves?